A very good evening and welcome to this edition of the Fourth Estate. Charles Mongo Shampagi. And tonight, normally on the Fourth Estate, we wouldn't discuss or celebrate an anniversary. But when it's about us, we have an option, but actually, to talk about us. Tomorrow, the 24th of July, 2017, the Daily Monitor will be marking 25 years since it hit the streets. And we'll be talking about the journey the Daily Monitor has walked over the last 25 years to become one of the most influential newspapers in the country. Actually, the current editors of the Monitor tell us that it is the most influential newspaper. May not be the biggest circulating independent. It is the biggest circulating independent newspaper, but not selling the highest copies of all the newspapers in the country. But in a country that newspaper sales are so low, circulation numbers are so low, the magic is about how much influence you have. We'll be trying to walk the journey of the last 25 years of the Daily Monitor. And let me start by introducing the people we have. It's an all-Monitor crew in studio tonight, talking about us, old generation and new generation. Let me start with David Oma Balikowa.
Good evening, viewers.
David Oma Balikowa is one of the founders of the Daily Monitor. Sheila Naturinda.
Good evening, viewers. Thank you, Charles. Good evening, viewers.
Sheila is a former journalist of the Daily Monitor, one of the youngest generation of the Monitor family, but she was there for a brief period of time and has moved on to do other things. Charles Odobo Bichachi.
Good evening, viewers.
Charles is old and current at the Monitor. You're currently the managing editor? Executive editor of the Daily Monitor. And you've been putting together for us the weekend editions, especially, for a very long time. Very nice to have you. And, of course, Onapito Ekomoloid. Onapito needs no introduction, especially when it relates to monitors. We always do that. What a very nice to have you.
We are the historicals.
Yeah, the historicals.
The 27th.
Gentlemen, Timothy Kaligira writing in the Sunday Monitor today, walking the journey of the Daily Monitor, questions on whether this country, whether the glass is half full or half empty. And then his argument is where the Monitor positioned itself and how it was viewed over the years. I want to start with DOB. DOB is the name, the acronym, DOB, is the name by which David Oma Balikowa is known, together with his other, with the other co-founders. Who are the other guys you started the Monitor with?
Ofula Ogutu, Charles Onyangobo, James Serugo, the late Tebere, and the late Kevin again.
Alio,
yeah.
Richard Tebere. Richard Tebere died in an accident.
Yes, with Rashid Mudini.
Rashid Mudini, yes.
Yeah.
When was that?
I think 1998. Yeah.
When you look back at 25 years, the six of you, you're six, right?
Yes.
The six of you, the journey the Monitor has walked. Initially, you called yourselves the paper that builds the nation. Today, the Monitor is called Truth Every Day. What are your reflections? What are your recollections of that journey?
Oh, I think that was the moment when everything was being kind of reconstructed. You remember, I think that was about almost 7 years ago since the NRM had come in. So, you know, there was a lot of repositioning in terms of how we are supposed to, you know, to forge our way forward in terms of our politics. The economy also is also being reviewed. People were thinking of whether we should go privatizing and whatever. So there were a lot of things on the plate that the nation was considering. So it was a very important moment in the history of this country. And I think the Monitor could have not arrived at a better time to be able to contribute to the reconstruction of our political agenda as a country, our economic agenda, and almost everything. Yeah.
You're now in private consultancy, so you read the Monitor. Yes, you remain a shareholder, but you read the Monitor like an outsider.
Yes.
Critique the mistakes that you see, or get angry at the mistakes that you see in the newspaper. What the paper stands for today. Do you look back and tap yourself on the back and say, we are where we actually thought would be 25 years later, half a century later?
You see, the first thing I do recognize that I'm also aging, and things cannot happen as they happened 25 years ago. We lived in a different environment, and today's monitor is operating in a different environment. So certainly there are things that I would have wanted to be done the old ways, but people will remind me that maybe you are old and you can't anymore. But of course there are certain things which I can also look at them and say, well, you are young and you don't know, maybe you could have done it this way. But by and large, I think the monitor has really tried to remain as independent as it could. It comes out with a unique story that the public expects, because they know that there are certainly stories that other people would not touch, so they always expect the monitor to be able to do that. So I think by and large, I think the monitor has tried as much as possible, but as I said, through different circumstances, because if you look at the political climate by that time and today, we came into play when we had a broad-based government in place, where the NRM had been able to attract the goodwill of everybody. It had been able to bring in people from the political opposition, the UPC, especially the DP, for example, when the Somogel within the government. So there was a lot of goodwill from everyone. And I would even say, even from the journalists themselves, even the monitor itself, I would say that we played a good role at that time in terms of giving the NRM coverage, in terms of their agenda, and so everybody thought that they had to rise to the occasion and contribute towards the defining of the political direction of the country. And so there was also a lot of vibrance in the CA, and even after that, when we had the first parliament, the MPs were really debating, and if you go to the Hansard and look back, the political debates at that country, it was so exciting that even young journalists at that time, like Onapito, could not even resist the temptation to leave journalism and try out the parliament.
Yes, and I wanted to jump to Ona, right there. Ona, walking down memory lane, you are the foot soldiers. The guys who didn't mind walking to find the story. Today's journalists don't walk to find their story. They must be driven to deliver the story. If you look at the journey of the media beyond the monitor, because the monitor was the first major media house to be established that attempted to look at the other side of the story, not the government's narrative, because the Dobbs walked out of another newspaper that decided to ally itself too much with the government. When you look back, which journey have we walked as a media? Where are we now?
Look, first of all, I have sweeter beat memories with the monitor, It was a place that made me. That's where I cut my journalistic teeth, and even maybe the political path started from there. But of course, I became a rebel at some point and formed some kind of Biafra that we call the Crusaders. So we have a lot in common, but also departure. To me, I think the journey that the monitor represented until today is really moving from journalism as a concept of changing the world. The idealism that used to occupy the space of the media, that were there to change the world. We saw that the mission of the journalists was to try and right the wrongs of society by exposing them, and hopefully society sorts out. I think since then the journey has moved to a bit of co-option. I think the media has been co-opted by various forces, at economic and political level, and the line has got a bit blurred between the media as a check on society, check on governments, to almost playing along. We now have what we call the establishment media. Much of the media is part of the establishment, truly the fourth estate, so to say. It's part of the four pillars of society, but also playing along largely not to check the other three pillars. I think that's the major difference since our days and today, that most journalists increasingly see themselves as part of the establishment. You can criticize them along with the rest of the governance as part of the problem, so to say. The media has also become part of the problem, as rather than those who think they are providing solutions. Of course, people will disagree with that. That's how I look at it. Especially since I'm now in the corporate world, which actually tries largely to see the media as allies more than people who should check them.
Who try to recruit the media. Yes, to use the media to advance their agenda. Sheila, you now work, you're a media consultant, you're a communications consultant, and you've been working at you work at the Uganda Registration Services Bureau, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, but you spent some time in the newsroom. You recruited through an interesting system because you went through a media lab
Yes.
of preparation. You've been in, you've been out?
It was rigorous. 800 candidates, and Monitor wanted 5, so you can put the numbers together. So we were taken through a 1-year lab.
So you beat
Nairobi.
795 people.
Yes.
To make it to the lab.
Yes, I wasn't the best. I was the third.
You're the third. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and for the 1 year in the nation media, we were trained and across board, all media, but we did not take. We were not taken through the digital. But it was not digital, online, but it was print, television, and radio. We're taken through all that because nation media has all those platforms, so that when you come back home, you're an all-rounder. That was the concept. That you come, you can write a story, report the same occasion for the radio, and also do a script again for the television. That was the concept. So that was in 2007. We were the first candidates for that media lab. And it's still going on, I'm certain. Yeah. 2007, you joined the newsroom shortly after Uganda had gone through a major election, the one that had term limits removed. And then you are part of the newsroom that did the stories of the 2011 elections. Yes. Would that be correct? Yes. Looking back, now you've been out of a newsroom for some time. Looking back, how is the media, how do you see the media, and especially the Monitor, placing itself or positioning itself to be the continuous influence on our politics? The aspirations, the ideals that the Dobbs had, the excitement of a new government 7 years in power, and everybody thinking you're now on a forward journey. And now you're caught in a huge debate here about whether the country has actually politically transitioned, whether the country has economically transitioned, whether we are still on the transition journey or have arrived, we're still idling on takeoff. We've been on takeoff for some time. How do you see the media? The media in general, I'll look at Monitor for now. Monitor is struggling with all the other media houses, especially traditional. They are struggling with so many changes. There's this new media, where every day by midday you know everything that has happened, but the paper must come out the next day. So it's actually not Monitor alone. All the other papers that are traditionally print media, they are really struggling with that. Then there's also the uncertainty in politics and economics. You don't know what the society wants to read. So I really feel they are at what we usually say, this old cliche of catch-22. I don't know how they are doing it. Maybe Charles will tell us. But it's one thing that should wake them up and bring them out to think deeper into what society wants to know. They could do a research, probably, but also you have the politics at play. Dobbs said when they started, they were, I don't know whether it was your introduction, when they started, it was really uncensored, very independent. I don't know whether Charles will tell us that they still are, but the in-depth, the news, today it's competing with television, competing with radio, competing with social media, where everyone is a reporter. But while we get the news on social media from everyone who is a reporter in society today, we expect the next day when we're getting the traditional paper to have more than what was on the social media. Probably because they would have dug more into the news and investigated and interrogated and come out with a better report. Charles, I wanted you to listen to the other people so I could come to you last. Okay. And I was looking at your headline today, the Sunday Monitor. 1995 constitution makers speak out on age limit. And you have the images of Mr. Kutana, I think he's Deputy Attorney General. You have Cecilia Atimo-Gwal. Yes. She's now in the Forum for Democratic Change. Yeah. You have, and she was called the Iron Lady at the time. The Dobbs were in the news. I think she still is. I think it was more pronounced then. I haven't had that. The iron lost a bit of it. I see you have Wandero Gallo. Yes. He was in Parliament and then he was at the East African Legislative Assembly. Yes. And you have Miria Matembe Koburunga, who was a minister and a member of Parliament. Yeah. The idealism that drives journalism, having sat in the Monitor newsroom, I still feel it.
Yes.
And sometimes the frustration is society working in tandem with your idealism? So tell us, what are your own current experiences? How do you feel sitting in the newsroom? I was dragging you out to come on the show when you're still working this evening. Yes. You
Okay. Like Dob said, the time when Monitor started, there was all this excitement. People were excited about the change. People were excited about the politics because it was different from, coming from the time of the instability. Now there is a lot of cynicism. People are very cynical about politics. There's no more excitement about the changes, about, So, in a way, it's very, very different. The newspapers still we are expected to drive the agenda, to try and set the agenda, but the audiences are pursuing very, very different things. They are concerned about lifestyle issues. They are concerned about consumption issues. They are concerned about enterprise. So we are having to walk that delicate balance, and politics is no longer the big driver for news. It is big on social media, but even then, the things that touch people every day, the more, I think they are the things that really the audience is looking at, and that's why you will see that the newspapers have changed. The Monitor is trying to create sections where it appeals to those specific market needs.
And some people believe that, Charles, we still sitting in newsrooms, we've lost our mojo. If I could borrow that, that we've just lost our mojo. We can't communicate with the people we're supposed to be communicating with. Others think maybe people don't want to read, people are lazy, or people are lost in so many other things. I don't know, I want to throw that around the
I think let me jump in here as someone who had experience trying to run a newspaper and then leaving to go and do other things. I sit back, I look at the newspapers, and I look at the kind of business I'm involved in, and I see there are really a lot of things that the media could learn.
Yes.
I think one of the biggest weaknesses journalists have is to write for themselves most of the time. And most of the modern business has learned that the consumer is truly the king, and you should never assume anything. What you think is the hottest story, the readers may think totally different. So one of the major challenges for the newspapers is how to transition to be in tune with the consumerism and to try and allow their consumers to determine the content. I mean, it's a very delicate balance because you want to stay true to the convictions of journalism that almost journalists tend to, holier than thee kind of attitude is the foundation of journalism. But then, unfortunately, as you say, the society has moved, and to survive, you might have to move without necessarily compromising. So the element of research, constant research to understand the readers, for example, how much do newspapers do? I don't think they do enough. And then in Uganda, there is a unique, maybe because of our history, we have gone through different kind of, people talk of our mean era, the impact it had on Uganda, and it increased the level of cynicism, perhaps the way Kenyans and Tanzanians don't have. Because despite the income disparity is not being so wide, the newspapers in those countries actually have wider circulation. That's a well-known factor. So the reading culture and the attitude towards the intrinsic value of newspapers is fairly low in Uganda. And people are more concerned with what I think the Baganda call in funeral. What do I get out of this? And I think newspapers increasingly now become tools, among other things, for people to get other things. The marketing element.
I don't know how Adobe is taking that in. I'm just
as an owner, he has to listen, and he will have to see how best. Because how does a newspaper become both have the intrinsic value, but also become a tool for consumer satisfaction? Because, for example, you have this whole craze of the airtime world and what have you, what people need. And how can a newspaper be a tool for access, a tool for marketing other goods and services? That's how the future of the newspaper, in my view.
And we need to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, I want us to wrestle with that a little bit more. Because I understand the frustration, Charles, when you think this is a major story for our audience, and the audience thinks it's not a very important story. But they will talk about it on social media, but they will not run to read the story. Where do you strike the balance, especially in a country where corruption is running haywire, governance issues are more apparent today than they were a few years ago, even society itself needs to correct itself, and you're thinking, I have a mission to deliver, I have something I stand for. How do you balance, how do you strike that balance? After a short commercial break. You're still watching The Fourth Estate, and as Monitor marks 25 years on your newsstands, we are walking the journey of the media in Uganda's transition. What kind of journey has the media walked with the rest of the country? And Nteja Simwe, it says, I left Kampala this evening, calculated my time very well to be able to catch up with The Fourth Estate at 10 p.m. I am glad the show started as I watched. Thanks for hosting my OG. I think that's Sheila. When senior journalists are discussing, me and Nteja Simwe can't dare ask them a question. I am enjoying the show. Thank you very much, Nteja. Jose Nuavin, I believe is in Kabola Aliantonde, says, we must congratulate Monitor for standing about the Monitor is that it's not a pretender. Everybody knows its political affiliation in Uganda. Let me ask Dom, what is Monitor's political affiliation?
Monitor's political affiliation is independent journalism. The problem is, I think, is historical. We started at a time when the political activities were proscribed in this country. The political opposition was not permitted to have political parties, political rallies, and their activities were only limited to their offices.
I remember one of the headlines we had was, you will see dead bodies.
Yes.
When some guys wanted to hold the rally
each time they tried to go out of the offices and hold the rallies, they were battered and whatever like that. And the government always made the claim that there is no political opposition in Uganda. It is great. The only opposition that they have is the Monitor. And the reason is because the only way how this political opposition could make itself relevant or being heard is by holding interviews or press conferences. So, and the Monitor was very open and independent, that it allowed all the political views at that time. You know, if the UPC had a press conference or a press release, or if they were arrested, the Monitor was there. If the NRA or M7 had a press conference, they were there. But having banned the political activities in this country, I think the people in government were not happy to see that still the Monitor was the outlet for the political opposition in this country. So it got that label of an opposition newspaper.
And it's continued actually.
It's not opposition as such. It only allows the opposition to have a voice in this country.
Charles, what's the Monitor's affiliation?
Today.
You said you're not pretenders.
the Monitor has not changed. It remains an independent paper. It remains an independent platform for debate and for national discussion. If you look at all the research by the different agencies that have been assessing the media, it all comes out very clearly. And like Dob says, the issue has always been that there are those who don't want certain voices to be heard. Our position is that we must allow every voice to come to the table, and then the citizens should be able to make decisions based on well-informed decisions. So Monitor has no political affiliation. It is independent and it gives coverage as much as it can to everyone. But
you're lying to the fact that that perception does exist. It existed during Dob's time, it exists during your time, and people think the Monitor is an opposition, or at least opposition leaning.
Before you add anything, I just wanted to note that while the Monitor is seen to be, by sample, as anti-NRM, it has bred 3 spokespeople for the president.
Yes.
Including the current one.
One here and 2 others.
And the current one.
Yes. So it's really...
How does that happen?
Because it has the best brain.
It's a perception.
No, because Monitor gives you this training, it builds you, it nurtures you that...
spokesperson for a presidential press secretary, Napita Komoloi,
Yes.
another presidential press secretary,
Linda
Nabusai,
the current one, in Don Wanyama.
And produced the director of public affairs and communication at Parliament in Chris Obore.
Yes.
So, how do you do it?
And many more will.
Yeah, so that tells you that Monitor is very independent, allows free thought.
No,
and,
actually, people think, Charles, that the government has always been struggling to neutralize you by picking up these people and taking them on the other side.
I actually have a different thought. I think the government is looking for performance and brains, and they can only find them in Monitor.
Yeah.
When you look at all the print media
I think
houses,
the culture of
Monitor.
not only government, even the NGOs, are getting...
Have been fishing people from it.
Charles, while we are in Monitor, there is a platform we are given by the Charleses. Oh, you were my supervisor the 5 years. There is this platform where you freely speak, even with your seniors. You remember there is no star, there is no one.
Yes.
There is that kimeza. It builds you, it nurtures you, it makes you so independent that you can take a leap in future. So I have a feeling we are more, I don't know what word I can use. You're tried and tested, so you can
fit.
Yes, you can fit in another place, whether hard or what. That's why Dob says even NGOs are comfortable taking on someone from Monitor. Or maybe you were injecting into us some brains.
Let me put the Monitor started with a mission to question authority at the time it was founded. Yeah. And for anybody who reads the Monitor today, you find that effort still. Yeah. It's an ongoing process. Yeah. But the question is, the broader question, which I want to start to run around the table, is, do you feel the media is getting there? I talked about, just before we took the break, corruption is running out of the window in this country today. Governance, you have very, very vitriolic debates going on, whether you do a constitutional amendment, whether you remove age limit, whether you keep the age limit. You have, yesterday the story you're covering, the minister goes to address local government leaders and they're pouring water on him because they're protesting, and there's a protest on your hands. Dob is talking about an environment where political parties were banned officially. Yes. Now you have an environment where political parties are allowed to exist legally, but the police goes and picks up 56 members of the Forum for Democratic Change in Alufenya, and they say they are consulting internally because they have an election coming up. So do you feel, where is that space? Where is that influence of the media, and what has happened? Honor.
I think let Dob take it out.
Let Dob go first.
Yes. I think it's what happened is that each period in time in the history comes with its own challenges. Yeah. So the challenges that we faced at that time were very different, and we're specifically trying to address those challenges. Now today, the challenges are very different. We have many radio stations in this country. Actually, the flow of information has even been democratized further with the social media. In the villages, you drive from here to Busia, and you hear FM radio stations in different languages. People debating and whatever like that.
You don't have to stand the knob of your radio car. It only changes itself.
Actually, that's one of the beautiful things that has happened in this country. That people are able to engage, on the radio stations in their local languages, and there is a lot of public enlightenment out there. But how
do you reconcile that? There's a lot of talk.
Yes.
But that talk is it impactful? It
is actually. When you carry out research, by the way, an average Ugandan is very enlightened. So when you see them even confronting a minister and pouring water on them, it's because of some enlightenment. They are now they're more empowered. Those days nobody could think about that, but they think now they have power in their hand, and because of what? Because of knowledge. However, we have to appreciate the fact that when times change, as a newspaper, you cannot continue digging in the same spot when the ground is shifting. You need to be very innovative, and that's the challenge, that the speed at which newspapers and the media have to be innovative is very, very, very fast. You need to think almost on an hourly basis and respond to what Onapeto actually clearly said, that it's the client. You need to do research and understand them. Do you understand the needs of your clients each and every day? Yeah? And one of the problems I think we are having right now is that newspapers and the media, because of the flow of many events, they are not able to, for example, to do a follow-up.
Yeah.
You read the story today, and you are so eager to see where it ends, and then nothing happens. Because, and one of the reasons is because we are increasingly becoming slaves to events. Okay? You watch NTV, you read the newspapers, it's the same thing. We are all there in the event. But those events raise issues. Now, as newspapers, we need to invest more time in issue-based journalism.
Yes.
For example, what are the issues in this story? How can we follow them up? I remember I had my daughter one day, and when I'm training outside this country, I do a lot of training of journalists outside the country, and I think we were watching TV, and there was this accident at a narrow bridge somewhere, and my daughter happened. What happened? I said, oh, it's an accident. How did they die? I said, they died. Why did the accident happen, Daddy? Because the bridge is narrow. But Daddy, why is the bridge very narrow? Because the government has not been able to expand it. But Daddy, why hasn't the government expanded that bridge? Because maybe they have not been able to budget for the money. But Daddy, the budget is for the government. Why couldn't they just improve the budget? Well, because maybe they haven't been. So that's why backwards is what the journalists of today needs to do and provide information. I was doing a training in Abuja, with one of the big newspapers there, and what I did was to find out whether really the newspaper was making impact out there in the public. So I went to the library and picked on two stories. One was about a transformer of power which had broken down in one suburb, and one story was about a fight in the market. So I picked these stories and I asked the journalists, do you still have the contacts of these people? They said, yes, we have the telephone number. So I called these people and I said, I'm coming to visit you. And believe it, when I reached in one of the suburbs where they had the transformer which had broken down, I was received like a hero. They said, are you from this newspaper? I said, yes. Work stopped. People came running. They came with the newspaper. They had this old newspaper 1 year later, taking pictures and whatever I was saying. So when I came back in this room, I told them that you guys, that story which you did was received so highly, they could not even believe it. I went to the market. They had a heap of photocopies of that newspaper. Okay? Now, I asked myself, if the journalists, for example, had gone back the following day and realized the impact, and it would be different. So, and as Anapeto says, and this is happening even in the private sector. By the way, the private sector is very, very interesting. They are constantly innovative. If you have a phone today, MTN, Airtel, they're constantly coming up with new ways of getting you. So even the newspaper itself, it has to be very innovative. Perhaps people want to consume the paper, the content differently, and they want different things. So I think we need, as journalists, for example, to rise to the occasion and realize that the ground is constantly shifting, and therefore we must be equally innovative in the way how we do what, the way how we tell our story.
The question I would want to put to the rest of the panelists: why isn't the media being that innovative? Because to be fair to the Monitor, if you look at the numbers across the board, today, newspaper readership in this country is, in terms of copy sales, is atrocious. You're saturating, we are saturating together about less than 150,000 copies per day?
Perhaps less than 100,000.
Maybe less than 100,000. And that puts together New Vision, Daily Monitor, Observer, Red Paper, Bukede, Etop, Rupin, Orumuri, Entasi, the Sunrise, the East African, which I work for, all these put together, you're saturating maybe less than 100, about 100,000 copies per day. Honor, there must be something wrong with our society, isn't it?
Yeah, I said earlier that our society is fairly unique, even within the East African context, and maybe that's a challenge. In fact, we have talked about this as journalists. Who will be the first, or which newspaper will be the first to break that magic barrier of 50,000 a day? And that is a challenge that the young journalists should have. And I think it will really come out of understanding the mindset of the Ugandan. Because we are in the same country, we have seen many other goods triple and 10 times increase their consumption. Things like the products I work for has grown tremendously. We have seen airtime and associated products explode.
And all these are more expensive than the newspaper.
Of course. So it means there is something Ugandans have not yet seen a newspaper in their mindset. I think most of us are Western world trained journalists, American, UK. We have that idea of a newspaper thriving on the intrinsic value. So I think the circulation, for it to go beyond 30,000, maybe reach 50, 100, we'll have to combine the intrinsic value of a newspaper and the true mindset of a Ugandan, what it's looking for in a newspaper. And that's the subject for really detailed
just wanted,
research.
Instead of digging deep into the circulation numbers and consumption methods, the question I'd put earlier is, maybe there are many people who think that politically the country's political transition or transformational journey has kind of stagnated. The economy, if you look at the last 6 years, we've been posting negative growth. I mean slower growth, not negative, but slower growth over the last 6 years, and which is a radical shift from the years of fast growth. Yes. Now, is there the bigger problem that we're trying to wrestle with, Charles, than just looking at the newspaper and saying,
look, it can be an economic problem versus newspapers consumption. No.
I think
it may be a political problem, that the level of the same cynicism that some people credit for NRM's long stay in power, the same apathy, the same detachment by the white population from debate, which newspapers represent, is what is translating to lower circulation. Because that most people are not so engaged. They don't wake up say, I need a newspaper to drive my thinking about the politics of the country.
Apart from those who get
that
the much of their offices.
That same apathy, that same laid back amongst most Ugandans is maybe what newspapers
what explains that?
Look, this is a feudal society.
For me, I think, well, I think there's for newspapers especially, there are multiple sources. There are more sources of information today. So there are so many competing, sources of information that where previously the newspaper was like a very primary source of information. Now readers are getting information from everywhere.
No, but just that would assume that the circulation was previously so high that it has now fallen.
No, but when you look at circulation alone, you perhaps will not get the whole picture of the extent of the newspapers. If you look at the readership, a lot of people are reading one newspaper. They are sharing this newspaper. They are even hiring this newspaper. That perhaps comes down to a bit of the cost element. And you find that...
but Ona has just told you he sells beer. And beer is a lot more expensive than the newspaper. Actually, you buy one beer, depending on where you are, one beer
is two newspapers. Certainly there's an issue about...
get the papers in the office. No, but Charles, we can't compare the beer the sales beer makes with the newspaper.
No, in some
really?
cases,
No, we can't.
Certainly,
in some places, one beer buys 3 newspapers.
No, certainly there's a problem that we must all face in this country, that the readership is low. And it's not only Uganda. You look at Kenya, for instance. The newspaper circulation in a day is about, for all the combined newspapers, is about 200,000 or 300.
But we still are worse.
Yeah, of course we are worse. But when you compare the population of Kenya, the size of the economy, the income levels, and
the culture,
so they should perhaps be selling a million copies a day. So I think there's a problem that we must all recognize and say, how do we overcome this? But from where I sit, there's a... You look at the readers, they are very, very sensitive to the costs, and where newspapers have made even slight adjustments to the cost, you actually see an immediate drop or an immediate rise. So those are some factors which really are at play.
Actually, I've observed that Uganda is the only country, one of the few countries where you can go in a taxi, in a bus, and you never meet a newspaper drop there. When I'm traveling in Europe and America, you don't have to buy a paper. It's on the train. But here, people value the newspaper that you will never see it, even in the house. It can cause a war. When you come back and you can't see your paper, you want to fight over it.
That's the reason the print media is actually still going to survive, because there are these people traditionally, I need my paper. You hold it. Even in office, people who get it by virtue of being in offices, by the way, they take them home. Yet in my view, they belong to the office. but owner will fold them and take them home, and I don't know where he takes the old papers.
He goes to read. He goes to read when he's more relaxed.
Probably. But Charles, me, I think circulation, I wouldn't think really circulation is because of, I still think it's because of the reading culture, probably. But Ona says it was not as high then, so was the reading culture still not good those years? I still think the papers could bank on day two. You used to call it day two when we were in the newsroom.
Day two on day one.
Day two journalism. Because Dob, I sit in an office where in the morning when my brother is driving me to work, I am on Facebook. I am seeing whatever is happening, an accident. I've seen it, which happened in the morning. But at night at 7 p.m., the Uganda news on NTV will bring me the accident. So why should the paper tomorrow bring me the accident? Why? If it brings me the accident, will I read it? I will not, because I already have from all channels. On social media, even people put their own analysis. There are even eyewitnesses who some may be lying. Then on TV, even radios, when you're in office, it's playing the same story. So my thinking is, if the print media would get out of the press conference, press release, write-up, and investigate further, if I would come to know probably that accident, like your daughter asked, was the bridge, is there a budget?
She was 8
probably,
years old at that time.
Probably there was a budget and someone messed up the budget, and that's why the road is not being expanded.
Can I just interject? Because I think I'm also a debater. I'm also a discussion, more than...
You're allowed.
I remember sitting in, even where I sit now at the East African, you're debating, you're thinking this is an important story.
Yes.
You're putting resources into doing that story. At the end of the day, the public doesn't seem to care. Where you think you have invested a lot of resources to do this in-depth story and deliver it to your audience, they don't seem to care. And I'm wondering why. Because if you look at the monitor, you're going to remember certain iconic stories that everybody will go back to. One is, you remember I think 1998 story? Was it 1998? 1998 story of Candida Lacogne. That picture. I was somewhere in Mbarara, and I remember looking out to wait the next day, because there was so much, there weren't many radio stations, but waiting to see, why is the newspaper not coming out? Has Monitor been closed? Why is it not coming out? And until about, I was a student at Kahoba, and until about midday, you're wondering what's going on. You'd remember a story like the one of Dan Vyaktaga.
Yes.
Dan Vyaktaga and 2 billion shillings.
The one who disappeared in
the year 2000.
2 billion shillings in the year 2000.
Yes.
Today you put in a newspaper.
I was in school with a daughter.
163 billion stolen, and nobody cares. They use it for Mandela. And you're wondering, what is going?
We are coming back to what Dafito said. That people believe that yes, Monta has written it, but what impact?
It's that attitude. People are tired.
In the beginning, the whole nation would panic and hear now what's happening.
Those are the things that drove us to monitor Dob. You would see a headline, some names we went to monitor knowing Charles, Rizdale, you'd want to meet the person. You'd see the headline and you'd see the debate it would raise in the whole country. But now you see a headline, like Charles said,
actually, I think the readers can now think
no, it's not a newspaper's problem.
The newspapers cannot impact on the direction of government, realistically.
But do they think there's anything that can impact?
So what do they think can impact? After a short commercial break. Welcome back to this last segment. We are marking 25 years of the Daily Monitor, and we are walking the journey of the media and the country's transition, or where do we stand, with David Omar Balikoa, Dob. You used to write a column called Hello, Mr. President?
Yes.
You're writing to the President, huh?
You could start it again.
Would you speak the same, would you say the same things if you wanted to?
I don't know about that, but I think I would, yeah.
Sheila Naturinda worked for the Monitor, now she works at the Uganda Registration Services Bureau.
Yes.
Charles Odobo Bichachi works at the Daily Monitor, is an editor, senior editor there, and Onapito Ekomoloit was once a journalist at the Daily Monitor, and now is Corporate Affairs Director and Corporate and Legal Affairs Director at Nile Breweries, Eddie Inbev. Someone here says, a viewer says, Charles, please stop comparing beer and newspaper because beer cannot be shared or hired.
I
Leslie Amanzuru William says Daily Monitor is my must, and must is in capital, in caps.
Must
read every paper every day. I propose that more now needs to be invested in the regional coverage. Leslie is in West Nile. He's been one of those advocates to save Zoka Forest. Yes, so he says you need. And then, oh, Mr. Bichachi, do you read Sunday Monitor's opinion pages? These 2 pages were donated to Kanyehamba, Alan Taka, Bernard Tavares, and Harold Achema. Their job is to shoot at Museveni every Sunday. I am surprised today the shooting was left to Alan Taka alone. Political affiliation is clear-cut.
That means your political affiliation is
Kanyehamba was a member of the NRM, was the lead draftsman of the constitution for the NRM. So I think Kanyehamba is actually...
He was an NRM elected MP,
yes,
served in government, many years as a judge. And someone says, thanks for the good show, Charles, thank you. And kudos to the old man and lady in the studio. It should also be stated that the Monitor was beyond contributing, the Monitor has beyond contributing the expansion of the frontiers of democracy, rule of law and constitutionalism over the years. Monitor has championed an important struggle for media freedom through such instances as the Andrew Mwenda and Charles Onyango Obo versus Attorney General cases, where the Supreme Court in one annulled the offense of publication of false news and the Constitutional Court in another struck out the offense of sedition. Those are major victories for media freedom and democracy for which the Monitor should work with her head high 25 years later and do all it can to jealously safeguard those gains.
And while that reader is crediting the Monitor, I know there has been 25 years, a long period. How has the Monitor survived? As a breakaway group from the Monitor, we didn't last that long, and one of the lessons was the ability to become multinational. The Monitor's founders' decision to, you may call it sell out, or to merge with the Nation Group. I think we have been seeing a lot of businesses collapse in Uganda out of fear of being taken over. I think the future for most businesses is actually multinational. Because they bring, you know, we suffered from undercapitalization as the Crusader, which I think the Monitor also was starting to suffer before it joined the Nation. You need capital in modern business. And if you can't borrow, then you should allow yourself to be co-opted by somebody who is well capitalized, so long as they don't really sell out. You don't sell out all your principles. So I think that was a fundamental learning for most businesses, not just newspapers. That you can have survival across the boundaries.
Lincoln Sayuni, I think in Kisasi in Tinda, says, whereas the editorial policy of Monitor has always seemed to be the mouthpiece of dissenting voices against the doctrines of the current regime, Monitor offered alternatives. The competition for readership pushed for improvements in dispensation. That's Lincoln Sayuni. Alex Imbonye says, thanks for the show. You have it right. We have got so scandalized as a country that it's hard to get a headlining story. That said, investigative journalism would partially reclaim the space of a print newspaper in the rather crowded information world.
He's right.
Let me see who else we have.
You will always get your own readers if you're doing that investigation.
Let's go back. I'm keen, Dob, on the question of where we stand as a country in terms of our gender transition. It seems there seems to be some kind of stagnation. Everybody's chasing their little lives, well-being for today, not thinking so much about what happens tomorrow. I don't know how you craft a newspaper, because sometimes you're thinking we go regional. Monitor provided one opportunity, if I remember well, and I think you must have handled my first story, which was a landslide in Bundiwujo that came on the cover when I was at the Monitor FM and sent in the story. Anybody could make, or can still make, in the Monitor, can still make a page one story. And any part of the country can make a page one story. But sometimes there's the thinking that space is narrowing. You're competing, you don't know where to go, where to stand. What does it say? That people, yes, want to read the newspaper, they're not buying it enough. crowded with a lot of information. On social media, somebody posts a funny joke, it gets 1,000 comments. Somebody posts something serious, nobody comments. I think it speaks directly to how people consume newspapers. How does the country get itself out of this? How do you, what reshapes the agenda to high aspirations for the country?
I think one of the things that we need to do is to resource our audiences and try to understand them better, other than sitting doing armchair journalism, sitting in a newsroom and thinking that this is the best story for the people. You need to go and find out what are their needs, what do they want to read. So you need to constantly resource your audiences and understand their needs and be able to respond to them, even when you think otherwise. You may think that this is the biggest headline, but to most people there are more pressing needs in their lives.
But newspapers have tried to do that. They have pull out magazines. They have this segmented coverage because the needs of the people are way too many.
But you see, that explains why they are still there. They would have collapsed a long time ago. But that attempt to try and do that has kept them going. That we are saying they could even do better beyond the survival that they have achieved today by even by even increasing their sales. So it has helped them.
Not only that, Sheila, it's fine to put an education story inside, but it will even be better to find stories about people's kids on the cover.
Yes.
If you, for example, read a story that concerns the fate of kids across secondary schools,
every mother would buy.
Yes, because they know these are our children. My own child could be affected. It doesn't have to be a political story, but it has to be an investigative story that shows, for example, how kids are being endangered in schools. There are things happening in schools which nobody knows.
I see those stories sometimes in the newspaper.
But that's small stories. They are not.
If you put it that way, Honor, someone will question what has allowed the collapse of traditional schools. The other day we were talking about Teso College, Alouette. We're talking about Boroboro College. We're talking about St. Leo's College. You're talking about Nyakasura School. You're talking about
Kigezi College.
Kigezi College, Butovere. You're asking yourself, why have these same parents, whom you think would care, let those traditionally good schools collapse, and each one of them is competing to find the most expensive school fees paying school,
private,
thinking that will give their children a chance. But because this other school is private, the connection, there's some kind of detachment. So I'm thinking there's a bigger societal, what's the word? There's a bigger societal disconnect.
Distrust of
that
public institutions.
Even the media is trying to grapple with.
But that's what I'm saying.
But what Honor says has
if they are bringing their kids to, if they are bringing their kids to the famous schools, what are the problems in those schools? That newspapers don't
we do these stories. We do these stories. I think we need to do many more. We need to do more of them. No, we do those stories. We had a story. No, we had a story very, very recently about the demands of private schools for children when the term is open.
How did the paper perform?
And it didn't perform as well as we thought.
Do you think the parents care whether they are asked for brooms and cement?
And
they don't.
We even included a school that is owned by the minister, who has put out a policy that these demands should not be met.
As government.
But the school makes those demands. So that's a story which touches very, very.
No, I think if the story was that all those things are being sold, that would have been but to say that the schools are demanding for things.
Actually, the school will ask you for a ream of paper and they'll say, don't write on it.
Yes.
Don't write the kid's name on the rota trim. Why? Because probably somebody doesn't show us somewhere.
Ago on social media was circulating a picture somebody took of a ream of papers, the rota trim, with a child's name on it, but they found it in a supermarket. But
you see, Charles,
that's the front page.
Story that we need to find out.
Yes.
Where do these
on
things
the front
end?
page?
So can we go to one school and really follow the trend of these things and realize that the headmasters have shops and then
we have done those stories.
No, Charles,
you guys don't buy your copy every day.
You have reporters who have kids in the school and they buy the lottery trim, but they'll still pay for holiday work, 20,000 or 30,000 when the term is closing, and no one asks
Okay,
So we bought a bit of paper.
I will.
I
Yes.
see those stories in the newspaper.
Yes.
What I'm asking is, these same parents we thinking are going to read those stories, don't read them or don't care. They just struggle to find the next money to buy even more things at the end of the school time. Let me just take a few messages because I'm also hearing some people trying to get through on the phone. Readers' apathy might be premised on our failure to answer the so what question, i.e., if so and so has swindled 200 billion, so what? Therefore, media have a task of constantly answering this question and providing deeper context. And I dare say, not many social media writers can fit this billing. That's Sam who's watching us.
Beautiful comment.
Peter Wamboga Mugiria says, do not rule out the advent of the FM radio and the internet have provided readers with an online paper. Today, newspapers post their news online, and hundreds of thousands read this early and don't look for the hard copy the next day. Facebook postings of news developments up to the minute, second, WhatsApp, or minute or second, WhatsApp, weather rumors or facts, e.g. Instagram with beautiful instant photos, give the papers a run for their money. So news media should get flexible, innovate new simple ways that, for instance, endear would-be big-time readers who aren't yet buying and reading the paper. Thanks, and congrats to Daily Monitor, Peter Wamboga Mugiria. There's another listener here who says, yes, this is Justus Katunji, who says, to read a paper, you must have gone to school. But dear, you don't need education.
Honor, they have you today.
No, so are you saying people are willing to spend money on things where I don't need to go to school? That's interesting.
And then someone says here that journalism needs to get activists to reclaim its agenda-setting role. This idea of neutrality no longer cuts it. What do you say about that? What do you have to say about that? The idea of attempting to remain neutral doesn't cut it any longer.
You see, the newspapers in the past were activists, but the activism today is will certainly not work. You must have balance. If a newspaper is not balanced, you are going to only attract a certain segment of readers. So you really can't be an activist newspaper.
There are newspapers in Europe and West who are circulating 500,000. They can afford, say, an editorial during an election to endorse one candidate. But in Uganda here,
we have to play it smart.
You want both readers from both sides. So.
Okay, Anthony Magezi here is saying, while there is growing competition to print media, social media, etc., beer and airtime are still holding out. My point, though, is the growing trend on substandard content or typographical editorial errors. Just last week, you say what was on the front page of, I think, commenting about the New Vision. They ran a front page with some missing letter, which changes the meaning. Secondly, I'd love to hear from the guests the role in current times of media in the country's political transition, and precisely putting into consideration how media has put Trump starts in the USA today, day in, day out. Yes. What do you have? Can I pick? Let me pick just a few callers, and then you can comment on them at once as we bring this show to an end. Hello. Do you have a caller? Yes, please.
Yes.
Hello. Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Edward, calling from Chitetika.
Yes, Edward. Go ahead.
Now, as long as the media is controlled by a commission like UCC, the electorate will never have a good... I give an example like the NATO forces in Bosnia and Herzegovina conflict. After the war, the NATO forces established a commission which was supposed to sieve information. And whatever information that was not pro-American forces and the Western power, it was not accepted. Now, similarly in Uganda, even where you are seated, as long as Uncle Mutavazi doesn't agree with whatever you are saying, he has all the power to switch you off.
Yes, but Edward, I can tell you, I don't make a call to Mutavazi before I come on the show every day. I don't think monitor editorial pages are sent to him before, or anyone for that matter, to look through them before they are run.
Okay, but I know that as long as he's not happy with whatever is taking place, then you'll be you can get problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Edward, for that. Do we have another caller? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Kennedy Mutanya. I'm calling from Ruwaga.
Yes, Kennedy.
First of all, we congratulate the money, but on the issue of increasing the numbers, say from 100,000 for all the newspapers, Uganda's market today in everything, not only newspapers, it is what has popularly come to be referred to as Mfunirawa. So people want to buy that newspaper, regardless of the information that is there, but they want to win something. So like now, Monitor is celebrating 25 years. But what is there for the reader?
I will tell you what.
I think the newspapers should now move from merely providing information to attracting readers, get attached to them, such that even if before I go for breakfast, I must buy a newspaper. But as long as it is just going to be whoever wants can buy, then I think the newspapers will remain at that same, the numbers.
Okay.
The numbers. So it is about what are the newspapers doing to promote themselves.
Okay.
For example, have they put in a coupon today or this week to say that you will win this? Monitor has got very many advertisers. Isn't it possible for Monitor to connect with those Onapito is there and the others and say donate a number of things to the Monitor, so that if I buy this paper on Wednesday, I can probably stand a chance of winning that we've been talking about. Then finally, I'm looking at the Monitor. I mean, okay, I can say Mr. Bariko was there and shouldn't the Monitor look for a day or a week where the original writers can put up stories, probably so that we remember, say, oh, this is what these guys did.
Thank you very much, Kennedy.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Do you have another caller? Hello?
I got a perfect person to reach.
Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm called Awilo Alfred. I'm calling from Zambia.
Yes, Alfred.
Yeah, and I like the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my question is, I've always heard of people have actions here and there, more especially when a specific, if some newspaper writes something or condemns people's negative attitudes towards the government projects. And you find that people go around saying that some papers are owned by government. I don't know, could that be true or not? Then the second point is, I really thank TV and the Monitor publication for the 50 years indeed. We people have been so satisfactory to the public, and we surely appreciate the Daily Monitor for the service.
Thank you very much, Alfred. We are not yet 50, we're 25 years. Yes. Do we have another caller? Hello?
Wishing you 50. That's good.
Hello? I think we lost that one. Do we have another? Hello? Now we lost that one as well. Hello? Do we have another caller? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, please. Hello, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
Yeah, this is Dixon.
Yes, Dixon.
I want to congratulate Monitor on 25 years.
Yes, please.
I think the readership, the editors of the newspapers, need to the business people. The business people need to come into the newsroom in terms of determining what kind of the stories they are going to run. Because I know there is this argument between editors, journalists, and then the commercial people. But these people on the streets, probably they know what kind of stories people would buy the newspaper.
Okay.
You find journalists and editors choosing headlines they feel that people want, which is different from what people really want from the script. And then maybe also to increase the circulation. If you look at Kenya, which sells, whereby you find like one newspaper sells 1,000 or 100 newspapers a day. Their history is different. From their independence, they had newspapers, but for us people still listen a lot to radio.
Okay.
So that also brings in poor reading culture.
Yes. Thank you.
We have a poor reading culture. We need to go back to schools, like those programs of newspaper education, encourage children to start reading early. Then when they grow up, probably they can associate themselves with newspapers.
Thank you very much, Dixon. Let's just pick one more caller. Hello? 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 Hello?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
Hello?
Yes, please.
Blacky?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
Yes, my name is Peter Wahemuka.
Yes, Peter.
Yes, I'm calling to contribute.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter.
Okay, so I'm congratulating Daily Monitor, making 25 years.
Thank you.
It's a great achievement. But I also think about driving saturation, we need to be relevant, be in tune with the people's needs of the day. Because I think if we don't package newspapers to the needs of the people, I think we are missing a point. Yeah, sometimes we find that we have too much political news, yet people maybe need information around the economy, business, social issues that actually affect them in their day-to-day lives. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Peter. I'm afraid to, yes, I'm afraid to, I can hear the phone is still buzzing, but we can't take more callers because we've got to bring the show to an end. Gentlemen and lady, you've listened to some of the callers and some of the comments. Let me just see, I might have a few more here to share with you as we wrap up this discussion. And what next? Where next? After 25 years?
I think I'll just interject where someone from whom I know associated with the corporate world came in and supported what I said earlier, that newspapers, in addition to serving our traditional role of checking government and what, if for purpose of business expansion, need to become tools for consumerism, because that is really a powerful tool. And I use this city as an example. If I look at the English newspapers, they write for one side of Kampala Road, which generally is not where the money is in this city. The money is on one side, but the newspapers are writing for one side of the city. If you use Kampala Road, they are writing for this other side where we are located, but much of the money is seen downtown on the other side. If you pick any English newspaper, how much does it relate to the other side of the city? What would those people in Chikubo and the taxi park and Owino, how much do they relate to the newspaper as it is today?
Okay, let me actually...
And they are the guys with the disposable income.
Two interesting questions here. Joe Osia in Intinda says, the question to you guys here, what is the opportunity cost if I don't read the newspaper for a day, a week, a month, or ever? Newspapers shouldn't simply aim to be relevant in society. They should aim to be indispensable. This requires a more aggressive synergy and balance of the editorial and business development skill sets. And someone has a very interesting comment here. I can see he's still typing. He says, Monitor is a good paper and makes it to the international standards, except one time in 2014, when one reporter was both to blackmail me. I was so disappointed, but I still trust the Nation Media Group. I still trust the Nation Media Group.
Okay.
I can say
it was about Charles, maybe
2014 should have brought up that complaint. If you, I know you're still watching us because I can see you're still trying to type another message. If that reporter is still at the Monitor, Charles is here.
And definitely we will take. We'll talk about that. But Charles,
sorry, gentlemen and ladies. Sorry, I value the viewers so much that I want to pick as much feedback from them as I can possibly pick. Deborah is watching us and she says, it's a long message. Thank you for the show. Among the many achievements of Daily Monitor is the unique products in its professional journalists. But the sad situation we face as a country is of this regime in power have succeeded in politicizing everything and everyone, from the podiums in the churches to newsrooms. Ugandans breed and feed only on politics. I disagree with Honor. I believe media still has a chance to shape the mindset of the citizens. I am so happy seeing Sheila. Lastly, talk about the motivation of the journalists in terms of salaries, promotion in order to keep the cream. Journalism is a calling and a passion, not a mere job. Thank you, Charles. That's from Deborah. Thank you very much, Deborah. Wow, who is this? Media watches others, but who watches the media? A media house is fault-free. Citizens have many ways of understanding what media houses do and can withdraw their trust. The author of this message...
Must be the other one.
Can you send me a message and tell me if I should mention your name or not? Because I know the name, but you haven't indicated it, so I'm holding it back.
You could tell the name
Asmani Bisika... No, this is a different person.
Oh, okay.
Asmani Bisika says, the Ugandan media needs a war to spare themselves. And if they talk to me very well, I can give them that word in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Asmani Bisika reported
the witch of Kibora.
The witch of Kibora.
And then Musa Ismail Adu says, we shouldn't get away from the fact that reading culture in Uganda is so low, and this has been worsened by the low purchasing power. This frustration is let out on the bottle of beer. They invest their money on the bottle of beer.
We also shouldn't capitalize on the culture, on the reading culture so much.
Okay, we need to...
we are taking advantage of this.
And someone else says here, the print media's feeble attempt to expose the growing fear on threats to life over their property and business sown by power holders among citizens makes them increasingly less relevant as the source of inspiration, finding answers as they negotiate life in this sluggish economy. That the feeble attempt to expose the growing fear, and fear is in quotation marks, on threats to life over their property and business, sown by holders of power among citizens, makes them increasingly less relevant. I think that's a good place to end the messages as well.
So
you have it,
perhaps, I think the feedback is very good. That for me is a good sign that people are reading us and people are still very, very passionate about the media and the print media specifically. There's somebody who asked what is in it for
if I don't read a
what is in it for us
for a week,
and what is in this the celebration, what is Monitor doing? And I thought I could use this opportunity just to say what is it that that readers should expect, for instance, in the paper tomorrow. We have a lot of good content which we have packaged specifically for this anniversary, and I think everyone should go out for that newspaper. The articles that he was talking about.
Our commercial department should bill you for the calendar.
Okay, and we have involved readers for the next 25 days. We will be retelling the stories that they read in the past, the big stories, and going behind those stories and telling them the things which could never be written at that time, what we went through to do those stories. So I think that is what is in it for our readers, and the readers have chosen these stories, and we are telling those stories to them.
Okay. Okay. Honor, your last word. You had the feedback. I have a lot more messages. I see Andrew Yumba here saying, one of the biggest bottlenecks in the media now is that I see as a practitioner is commercialization of news reporting. The stories that carry more space or bigger space are paid for stories. Is that true? I think the media is now becoming a corruption conduit rather than a checkpoint. So now that the public has understood our weaknesses, automatically it affects their appetite to read and believe in us.
Of course, for me, I think one thing that
cannot
cannot be discounted is the structure of ownership of the media in this country, like in many countries. As I said, it has increasingly moved from the journalists themselves. They own the media or own newspapers. Now it's part of big capital, part of big business. And big business, naturally, is cautious. Big business is largely in bed with the leaders of the day, because there is a lot of cross-pollination between business and politics. So with all due respect, Nation Media Group is heavily embedded in East African politics and East African business.
Yes.
And as owners of the Monitor, they are not going to be, in quotes, reckless.
Okay.
Like the journalists would
Sarah Kajingo is watching us, says, congratulations, the Daily Monitor on the 25th anniversary. I am still sad that the Daily Monitor placed me at the scene of violence in Ntungamo during the 2016 elections, where I was not. Sarah Kajingo. Very happy to see Sheila. And they say this is specifically for Senior Bichachi. You never retracted the story.
I had a conversation with her, and I think we'll take it offline.
I advise reporters and editors to always employ investigative approaches for stories which are blackmail in nature or get all parties' comments before publishing such stories. Top management of Monitor publication should caution their staff against allegations that someone's phone was off, yet the person was actually not called. I have been a victim where a reporter alleged that my phone was off the whole day, yet I spent that day at Grand Imperial Hotel doing some work as well as making and receiving phone calls. How come only a call from Monitor could not get through?
So I think we've gotten good tidings. I mean,
yes.
people are wishing us well and congratulating Monitor, and it shows you that actually there is a spirit of love towards the publication. Peter Bahemuka talks about what Dob and almost all of us have talked about, content, that it is that is going to drive readership. And Deborah now brings in something I had wanted to talk about, but I had first wanted to seek permission from Charles. I don't know whether he was comfortable with me saying that.
Monitor is an open.
Now that
Charles, yes.
Yes,
be looking at
this proverb of if you pay bananas, you hire monkeys. The issue is how much do you pay today? The reporters. Somebody is talking about commercialized journalism. Probably they have been paying to have a story come out. Probably another one has paid to have a story not come out. Or Ona and I are on the other side. I don't know whether Ona pays for Nile Brewery stories, which is not a paid for advert to run, or whether he pays transport. Or whether he pays transport. When you're in the communications now, where we are, you realize that there are those who will come and say, is there something you're giving us as transport? You really think about them. We've been there before. And you're like, is it because you don't pay them? You think if you paid them, probably, well, I don't want to put a figure because even, there's a salary increment scourge now in the country. Everyone wants a salary increment. Do you think if you paid them a little more, they could investigate further?
I think I should set the record for the public. First, we facilitate all our reporters. When we send them on an assignment, we do facilitate them. And
with how much?
Of course.
With the match
with what actually is enough for them to deliver on that assignment. Of course, there are issues of ethical misconduct
and they
in
happen
this country.
Society, really,
yeah, so it's not only a Monitor problem, but when we find out, when we get that problem, we act on it, because Dob here, when they started out, they are not being paid money. They did great journalism. Ona was working from so it can't be an issue of money.
We are sleeping in office.
Yeah, so we try very much to. I think we facilitate our journalists, and I think if there are any misconduct, it can't be because of money. It has to be other issues.
I'm afraid we got to get out of here. Dob, you are the elder, you have the last word on this.
The callers have demonstrated one thing, that the readers of the newspaper are the owners of the newspaper, because they fork out money every day to have them training. So actually the paper is them. And from what they have told us, actually, it just shows that they are very knowledgeable about what they want. People like Kennedy, Deborah, Osio, all those things they have talked about. It's wrong to assume that because it is a newspaper and it is being sold, therefore people understand, no, you must take a distance, an extra mile, and promote your product. So I think as editors, we should spend equally, withdraw from the paper once in a while, interface with the public, people like the Kennedys, the Deborahs, and listen to their to their views. That's the only way how we can improve our product, other than simply assuming that we know what they want.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to the Daily Monitor. Dob, congratulations to you. I know you remain a shareholder in the newspaper.
Are there medals for us, the historical?
Honor and
There's going to be a
thank you very much to all our viewers. I was looking at, you're talking about newspapers, I'm looking at stories in the East African, for example, already out on the street. Museveni clears 2.9 billion China loan for Malaba Kampala SGR. Now I want to tell a story about this because having worked on this story with my colleague Victor Simwe, and then the thinking in Nairobi, what we had picked out of this story was Museveni's letter to Parliament over loans, the ones he cleared and the ones he didn't clear. And we found that there was the figure written for the SGR loan is 2.9, but the figure in the budget is 2.29. So we initially thought the story was, where is the extra 900 billion
coming from?
900 million going to?
Yes.
But editors, our senior editors in Nairobi were saying, we're thinking about it a different way. So maybe that's one of the things we need to think about in the newsrooms every day, to think, what actually is the story? What is more relevant than the others? And I see quite a big package. I don't know how much you're doing in the Monitor on the Kenyan election. I see it being debated on social media, and on the Rwandan election and how much is being done, and I see quite a bit of reporting about it here. But very nice to have you, Dob.
Thank
I
you.
think to come a little bit more.
Thank you, Charles, for inviting me.
Someone sent
And write a bit more in the Monitor.
They are very happy to see Dob on set tonight, and they are saying there is life after retirement. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Charles, and thank you very much, Sheila, for making time for the show. Thank you very much to all our viewers for joining us tonight and always, and thank you especially for the feedback when we're talking about the media. Thank you very much to the production crew that stay up late to deliver the show to you all, and of course, for you staying up late to receive the show. From me,